We come now to the final part of our discussion about public discourse. And this is where we really get into the meat of the possibilities for what we can discuss and what we ought to be discussing in the public sphere. So let's return to the handout. Okay. Last time we talked about the different levels of human personhood. I showed you the diagram. Now we're going to talk about public discourse and the most basic questions. You saw me fumbling just a moment ago, and that's because I wanted to draw your attention to the diagram of the house. And I have it here again. Let's move it over just a little bit so you can see. I've labeled it here. If you recall, these are the more basic issues in terms of philosophical discussion. So at the bottom is epistemology, how do I know? The foundational level is what is real or eternal. And then we go up to the house, the world and life view part, and that's where ethics and all of our choices, our values, our attitudes come out. And if you remember, I talked about experience coming through these different aspects of our different levels of our world and life view, and then we interpret our experience, we give it meaning through reason. So this is review, and we always are putting the more basic at the bottom and the less basic at the top. Now, we're going to return to the handout and talk about public discourse and the most basic questions. So the most basic questions are those questions that were on the diagram of the house. So let's go through this handout together. If we're to make progress in public discourse and find unity among persons and groups of persons, we must address the more basic issues prior to the less basic issues. Remember, also in this study, we're trying to find meaning and settle disputes. So again, disunity indicates disputes, and it indicates that we don't agree on something more basic. So here, let's just go through this. The more basic issue to address is our approach to knowing. The most basic issue to address is our approach to knowing, or epistemology. And the main question here is, are we committed to reason? And what does that mean? I'll just draw your attention to the reason handout. You can review that. And what does our commitment to reason imply? It implies that we'll go where reason leads us, that we'll make judgments and we'll back them with arguments. We'll try to support our judgments with arguments and evidence. The next level of issues to be addressed are questions about ultimate reality and human nature, or metaphysics, that level of the foundation of the house. What do we think is real? And what is a human being? So those are the next level of questions to be discussed. And then after that, the next level of issues are questions about what is good for human beings and what is evil for human beings. So if we can define what a human is, we can define what is good for humans, and what is the opposite of the good we'll call evil. This is the area of ethics. And what is the goal of life, and how may that goal be achieved? Those are questions of ethics. Part of the house in that drawing. If we can address these more basic questions, we may be able to address the less basic questions, such as religious doctrines and political platforms. There are lots of different religions, right? And they go back to that more basic question, whether all is eternal or only some is eternal. These are philosophical questions. These are questions of metaphysics, and they have been largely abandoned in our day because of skepticism. And so that's going to be a topic we have to address rather shortly, maybe even the next topic. All right, so what are the goals of public discourse? Why would we even want to have a discussion in the public sphere? So let's go over this. The goal of public discourse is to discuss what is good and desirable for the public, our shared life together. Now, when we went over human personality, we talked about the essential features of a human are that we're rational animals. Aristotle, who also wrote a treatise on politics, said that human beings are rational political animals. And the political part is that we share we share a common life together, and in that shared life we have to have some rules. And so we have a public life together. We can't deny it. No person is isolated from other people. Now, what is our shared life together we'll call the common good. There is a goal for living together, or people who live together have usually a shared system of values, where the house represents an individual's world and life view. A community shares values. A culture is a shared system of values. A civilization is a shared system of values that has those values in institutions like law and government, family, education, business. So that's part of civilization, and so we need rules for living together in a common community, culture, civilization. Human beings are social beings. We must live in communities. And what is the common good for human communities in which we live? What is the common good? Have you ever thought about that? What is the goal of this community that we live in? Is there a basis for a common life together? If all we have are disputes and differences and nothing in common, then how can we have a common life together? So public discourse is for the public, the common, and we're looking for a basis for common life together, which means we're probably going to have to discuss those big issues that divide us, like metaphysics and ethics and epistemology. All right, so I'm going to have to move this just to get to that next section here. Now, religion. Some people don't like this topic. Things have gotten more and more difficult in the past, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 years to talk about religion. It's not a done thing. When I started school, it was an exciting thing for me to have an opportunity to talk about religion with people who came from different backgrounds. I still think it's exciting, and that's partly why I'm emphasizing this topic, because religion and politics are some of the most deeply held views that we have, and because they're deeply held, we should have a way of discussing them without resorting to incivility. All right, so here's this last section, religion and public discourse. We live in a religiously plural society. That's just a fact. There's no agreement on religion. There's no common religion. At least in the United States, we're a pluralist, mostly secular society. We are faced with the reality of difference among people at the deepest level, that of our basic beliefs in every level of society. We disagree in families. We disagree in the realm of economics. We disagree in the realm of government. We disagree in the educational system. We disagree in church. We disagree in business. So there's deep disagreements and differences. So what do we do? What do we do? If what is public is what is shared, and religion, at least in our current society, is not shared, then what are we to make of public expressions of religion? Should religious people just keep their views private? That's what we say, right? That's a way the Enlightenment tried to get around differences in doctrinal disputes that led to wars of religion. So what do we do when people want to express religion publicly? Well, they may have the right to speak freely, but the question is, will anybody listen? So here's a question that comes next. Is there a way for religious expression to occur in the public sphere? And what if religious persons were also committed to common ground? Could we talk about religion if we started with common ground? And you're saying, what's common ground again? Let's return back to common ground. And I'm going to I'm going to go here, put this back down here. All right, remember, what if a religious person was committed to reason the laws of thought and the laws of being? What if a religious person had integrity and they said what they meant and they meant what they said and they lived it? What if a religious person affirmed that some things are clear to reason and they were willing to go where reason led when it comes to what is clear? And then what if religious people were also seeing the need to address more basic issues prior to addressing the less basic issues in a conversation? Basically, religious persons could use the tools of philosophy to engage with others who have different views. And so I don't know that we should silence anybody, but rather we should invite everybody to engage in a public conversation if we have common ground. All right, well, that's my hope at least. And this will end our discussion on public discourse. Some of the issues that came up that we still need to address are some things clear to reason? We should address that. What's clear to reason, if anything? And then the issue of skepticism, which says we can't really know. So we'll have to look at both of those issues fairly quickly, and then we're going to talk about what is knowledge and is it possible to know things. All right?